Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where you know the deal. People truly believe it's all about them and no one else matters. And in today's episode, we're dealing with some of the most entitled retail Karens ever. We've got people demanding their purchases being paid for, attacking people, shoplifting, and one OP shares some experiences while working in retail that made them quit for good. I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I work at a grocery store, and on this day, it was a normal day until the last hour of my shift. I walk up to this lady during happy hour. She had put a bottle of coconut water where it doesn't belong. I ask if it belongs to her, and she says she doesn't want it. So I take it, and I politely let her know that she can give it to us next time to put away if she doesn't want it, and I thought that it was over. That's when her husband walks up, and I think she complained to him that I was rude, because the guy marches right up to me and hears the conversation. He says to me, "Hey." I respond, He then says, "Don't you ever tell my wife what to effing do again. She can put stuff wherever she wants." I'm confused, and I just say, "Okay, are you talking about..." He then stops me and says, "You think you can tell my wife where she can effing put stuff? You told her not to put something over here." He then points to that spot. And I say, "Oh, yeah, I did say that. It's just to help us out. There's no hostility, man." The husband says, "I don't care if there was no hostility. You're a damn worker and my wife is a customer. My wife can effing put stuff wherever she effing wants to. Do you hear me?" I respond, "Dude, I wasn't trying to be rude. I'm just letting her know that." He then gets in my face with his finger like an inch from my nose, and he says, "I do not care. Now apologize so we can get out of here." I say, "Okay, I'm sorry." He then continues and says, "I mean, who do you think you are telling my wife what to do?" As a matter of fact, he then goes to the spot and he slams a can of corn down on it while saying, "There, I don't want this corn, so what the F are you gonna do about it?" I just repeat myself and say, "Dude, there was no hostility." The guy just says, "You effing don't talk to my damn wife about nothing. Mind your own effing business." At this point, I call the manager, and I go to help other customers while he's cursing me out and acting like he achieved victory. The other customers around us were extremely nice, and one even challenged him saying, "You guys are rude." To which the guy says, "Mind your own effing business. This is between us and him." I was trying to avoid a fight because neither me or the guy needed to waste our time talking to police. The guy may be a Karen, but I'm not gonna be the one to send him to the hospital, then jail. The guy just keeps going on and says, "You need to mind your own business. And you," pointing to me, "need to stop telling customers what they can and can't do. Shut the F up." At this point, my manager comes over and he sent me away. And then he de-escalated by doing the usual, "We'll look into it, sorry for your trouble." In the end, I avoided a fight and my manager avoided one too. I can tell when someone's ready to swing, and this guy was just on the edge of fighting me or my manager. I hope the guy fixes his attitude, cause it's obvious that the guy's cranky, tired, and stressed. Well, not only that, but also a frickin' psycho a-hole, plain and simple, because who throws a tantrum to that extent over something so small, right? Like, the guy must be a ray of sunshine to work or live with. And this person says, "Guaranteed, this is a situation of no one tells my wife what to do except me, that is. Cause I'm sure the dude's a dick to his wife at home too." Alright, so in my past, I was a cashier at a military exchange. Most of my customers called it the Post Exchange, but it was the Navy Exchange. And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, so my memory on the specifics might be a little vague. So to lay down the story, being a military exchange off base, there were rules. You need to show your military ID in order to enter and again to check out. You were allowed as a guest, but they had to accompany you the entire time, and only the person bearing the military ID was able to make any payment at all. With that in mind, let's dive in. So on this day, I was doing my job. It was probably an hour and a half to closing. I was usually at the register closing, just my preference, and I was good at it. It had been a fairly slow night, so up until then, I was in a decent mood. Things were clean, and I was just waiting for customers, straightening things out. Retail people know the drill. And then a Karen comes to the register with a guest, her friend. The Karen had stuff she was buying, so she shows her ID, which was fine, and then checked out. And that's when her friend sets down a Visa gift card. One of those prepaid choose your balance ones. Great. I ask her friend for her ID after getting it into the system and gearing up to activate it. That's when Karen shows her ID again, while her friend tried handing me her money. I asked for her friend's ID, and this is where the fun starts. That's when Karen told me it's okay, that her friend was with her, but I told her I couldn't take the money from her friend without seeing a military ID. Now, just to be clear, this wasn't my policy, and this wasn't just the store policy. This was company policy. That's when Karen insisted, so I radio my manager at the time. And thankfully, this was one of the good ones, and she backed me up. And I remember Karen's next statement very clearly. Karen says to me, "Do you really expect me to buy my own birthday present? Really?" And I just thought to myself, lady, what? I'm upholding my company's policy. So I, supported by my manager, repeated that I couldn't accept money from anyone without seeing a military ID. But if she really wanted her friend to buy that Visa card, she could have her friend buy it at the Walmart up the street, which was literally 2 minutes away, if she didn't have military ID. Now, if you thought it couldn't get any worse from here, you'd be wrong. Karen then started throwing things at me, and this woman had quite the arm. I just backed up as far as I could against the wall in my register area. And then, when Karen got tired, she started shoving stuff off the shelf behind her and then started knocking over full displays of candy. She then charges out the front, screaming that if we knew who her husband was, we wouldn't treat her this way. My manager ends up following, but not before he told me, "I'm so sorry, OP, you didn't deserve any of that." Not even 5 seconds later, my loss prevention/security guy rounds the corner and followed. I don't know what happened after that, but it was nice that management had my back. I never saw Karen again, and I do wonder what happened to her after that. Yeah, my guess is her spouse probably got in a load of crap from his commanding officer. And in turn, Karen wasn't allowed back there. Like, I can only imagine how that meeting went, right? So, can you tell me why your spouse is using your rank to harass employees? And why in the world did she think that destroying a Navy exchange was a good idea? But yeah, no matter what rank her husband is, it's definitely frowned upon when the wife goes and trashes a store, all because she thinks that rules should be bent for her. So I discovered your stories a while ago, and it's breathed new life into my withered soul, and today, it's time I return the favor. These tales all took place over the 3 long years that I had the misfortune of working retail at a big box store known for its red bullseye logo and bitchy entitled middle-class clientele. Oh, and because of this, I will never go back to retail ever again. So that said, on with the post. Number 1, the tag switcher. I was working in the fitting room one night when this Karen bustles in with like 3,000 different items of clothing she wanted to try on. Unfortunately, my store just lifted the item limit for fitting rooms, so I begrudgingly had to let her take everything back. The woman then proceeds to make a huge mess in the fitting room. She's leaving clothes inside out, all over the floor, tags ripped off of items, size stickers peeled off and slapped on the wall, the whole 9 yards. After she leaves, I report the ripped off tags to assets protection, and figuring that would be the extent of things, I then resigned to cleaning up the mess she left me. That's when I get a call from the manager. He wants me up at the registers to do backup. Now, I'd worked the registers before, but it was exceptionally rare for me to get pulled away from the fitting room to do backup. Still, I don't protest, and I head to the register. And guess who my first customer is? It's the mess-making Karen from the fitting room. The managers directed her straight to me, and I can tell from the wide-eyed look of horror on her face that she just realizes that she's been led into a trap. The woman slowly begins to plop her items on the conveyor belt as she tries to make nervous small talk. At first, I just assume she's feeling awkward about the mess she left. But when I get a better look at her items, I immediately realize that there's something much fishier going on. The woman's entire purchase consists of women's clothing, and I recognize most of the items as brand new stuff that's recently come in, stuff that should cost full price. So when I see that every single item's price tag is covered with a bright red 70% off clearance sticker, I realize that something's up. When I look down at the first item from Karen's pile, my suspicions are confirmed. The item that I'm holding in my hands is a woman's Mossimo black clothing item, but it's got a bright blue tag that belongs on infant boy clothes. At this point, Karen's busted. This woman was switching tags on clothes to get a lower price. Not only that, but she was so brazen or stupid that she used the tags from the wrong department. I don't make it immediately obvious that I figured out her scheme. Instead, I think fast. From my experience in the clothing room, I know every item of clothing has a little white tag on the inside that has a 9-digit item code. So instead of scanning the items, I then proceed to type in each and every item manually, using the actual numbers inside each garment to reflect the correct pricing. The woman watches this all unfold with a nauseous look on her face, as item after item rings up at full price, $19 to $29, compared to the $2 or $4 price tag she stuck on each item. As her total grows, so does the look of hatred on her face. The woman's now complaining that I'm not doing my job properly, and that I should be scanning the items. Finally, she stammers something about me having to honor the pricing that's on the item of clothing, to which I reply, yes, we usually do, ma'am, but not in the case when someone swaps the tags out. She then rummages through her purse and she literally says to me, "Oh, I forgot my wallet. I'll come back later." And then she runs off towards the exit. The asset protection guy watches her walk out, and then he comes to me. He reveals that he's been watching this woman before she even went to the fitting room, but he didn't have enough on camera to approach her. Since I was the only team member working that night who was familiar with the clothing and tags, the manager put me on the register to check her out, literally. Number 2, the phone shopper. It's the week before Christmas and the store's frantic. I'm manning the phones, which are ringing off the hook. And one night, I get a call from a person who I'll call Bitch Princess Karen, who wants to know if we have any so-and-so popular toy in stock. Now, the store's holiday policy said that we can confirm availability over the phone, but we weren't supposed to put high-demand items on hold for a customer. Regardless, I was still unjaded enough to like hooking people up. So I let Karen know that this highly coveted toy has been flying off the shelves for weeks, and I'm doubtful we have any in stock, but I'll happily check for her if she's willing to go on a brief hold. The woman impatiently agrees to the hold, and I set the phone down. After being slightly delayed by a customer that ambushes me on the sales floor, I miraculously find one of those stupid toys on the shelf. So I grab it and head back to my post, excited to tell Karen that I saved Christmas. But when I get back, I find the phone ringing again. Recognizing the number on the caller ID display, I quickly deduce that Karen's hung up and she's now calling back. I barely get a chance to recite my scripted greeting before Karen cuts me off, yelling that I put her on hold for like 30 minutes, that she's a customer and it's my job to assist her, and then some nonsense about her having priority over customers since she's a caller, blah blah blah. And I just want to point out that literally none of what she's saying is true, but I keep my lips sealed. Instead, in a ridiculously pleasant voice, I say, "Ma'am, Thank you so much for your patience. I checked the sales floor and I couldn't find this stupid toy, but the computer's telling me that we might have one in the back room. If you bear with me for another minute here, I can... She then interrupts me and grumbles that yes, I could go check the back room, but I'd better hurry because she doesn't have time for this. So smiling gleefully, I put the phone back on hold, and I proceed to return that stupid toy to the spot where I found it on the sales floor. I then spend a nice chunk of time helping out actual customers in the store. Eventually, I remember that Karen's still waiting on hold, and I return to the phone. I tell her, "Ma'am, good news, we do have one in stock." Karen, of course, immediately barks at me to put it on hold, and a devious Grinch-like smile spreads across my face. I tell her, "I'm so sorry, ma'am, but actually, we're unable to put high-demand items on hold at this time. All I can do is confirm that it's currently available on the sales floor." Well, you can guess what happens next. The woman unleashes the wrath of 1,000 fiery infernos and demands to speak to a manager. I oblige, transferring her to the closing manager, who then confirmed the store policy before promptly being hung up on. I was pretty pleased with the turn of events, but the cherry on top came a short time later, when Karen actually shows up at the store, only to discover the toy had been purchased by another person. The woman ends up screaming at this employee so hard that cops had to come and escort her off the property. Number 3. The Shoe Snatcher. It was nearly closing time, and I was tasked with zoning the shoe department for the night. It was nearly impossible for me to get anything done because this obnoxious woman kept making me drop everything to help her shop for shoes for her toddler. The worst part was, this woman didn't put anything back where she found it. Instead, she leaves shoe boxes all throughout the aisle. The woman finally leaves, and I drag myself over to the massive mess she's left behind. As I'm returning all of the discarded shoeboxes to their rightful locations, I'm popping them open to make sure the correct shoes are inside. When I open one box though, I discover a very sweet sight indeed. A dirty pair of toddler sneakers. Now, this is a scam I've seen far too many times. Someone swaps out a pair of new shoes with their dirty old shoes. Only this time, instead of getting away, I caught the crook red-handed. Or red-footed. I then tucked the shoebox under my arm and quickly retraced the woman's steps. Sure enough, I was able to find her in the grocery section. And sure enough, her toddler was sitting in the cart wearing a pair of brand new cartoon character sneakers. I approached the mom with a giant grin on my face, and I said, "I'm so glad I caught you. You almost left without these." I then hauled open the box with the dirty sneakers. The woman then had the nerve to pin the blame on her kid, playing it off as if her kid had swapped the sneakers. Shake my head. The woman actually scolded him out loud and tried telling him that what he did was wrong. Oh, the irony. So yeah, there's a lot more I had to deal with, but I'm glad I'm not working retail and having to deal with people like this on a regular basis anymore. I was recently reminded of an encounter I had 7 years ago. I was keeping a very detailed diary at that point, trauma therapy related, so I do have all the details logged as well as all the info I got afterwards. A little bit of background is in order here. I grew up in a very abusive household, berating, gaslighting, emotional blackmailing, screaming, all that stuff. That was on a daily basis for the first 23 years of my life, until I finally saved up enough money and I mustered enough courage to leave that hellhole of a place. I moved to a different town, about 2 hours by train, and I found myself a small apartment and a quiet job as an office assistant. I also started therapy as soon as I settled in, to become more of a person instead of a big pile of crap that my parents made me believe I was. So with that out of the way, let's get to the actual encounter. It was about 10 months after my move. One Saturday, I went to the fridge to find out it was completely empty, except for a lone pickle in a jar. And I needed to go get some groceries if I don't want to live on crackers and pickle water. So I pushed myself to get dressed, brushed my teeth and hair, grabbed a shopping basket, and went to the nearest supermarket. I walk into the shop, and I'm already anxious, trying not to attract any attention to myself whatsoever. I grab a bit of produce, a carton of milk, several packets of ham and cheese, some yogurt, and I'm almost done, and I'm about to bolt to the register when someone taps me on the shoulder and I'm immediately triggered, meaning most of my system shut down in order to not do something stupid. I turn around to see this angry-looking woman that could have been my mother, which is acting as another trigger. The woman's nervously tapping her foot on the floor. I respond, can I help you? I managed to get that out through the fog because my polite system stays operational at all times. The woman then says to me, "It's about time you noticed me. Do you know where that coffee is that's supposed to be on sale? No one's around to help me." Now, it does take me a while to process what she's saying and to formulate an answer. I say, I don't know. I don't drink coffee, actually. The woman interrupts me and she says, "What do you mean you don't drink coffee? I didn't ask you if you drank it. I asked if you've seen where the coffee is that's supposed to be on sale." At this point, the lady's practically screaming at me, in which point I start to back away from her and suddenly everything goes blank. The next thing I know, I was staring at the ceiling with a throbbing pain at the back of my head and a manager over me. The manager frowns and says, "Are you okay? You hit that shelf pretty hard." A bit later, 2 police officers came in to take my testimony, and they asked if I want to press charges, which has taken me aback, like suing someone for what? Apparently, after I started backing away from the woman, I shut down for good, and I blacked out, and I started frantically pleading with her to please not hurt me, while the woman continues to scream and close in on me. The woman then apparently got so upset that she grabbed my shirt and she yanked me to her to be close to my face, to which I instinctively reacted by pushing her away with as much force as I could. The woman didn't expect retaliation, of course, and she lost her balance. She let go of my shirt, and we both went backwards. The woman landed hard on the tile floor, bruising her butt, while I hit the shelf behind me head first. The security guard and one of the employees got there in about the same moment, so they saw us fight and fall. The security guy went to help the Karen, who's still screaming at the top of her lungs that she was attacked. Anyways, the paramedics end up coming. The officers scooped up Karen after seeing the camera footage, while the paramedics scooped me up and they took me to the hospital with a fine brain concussion. I end up pressing charges, and I think Karen got charged with assault, destroying property, and something else, and she ends up in jail. I didn't set foot in that supermarket for at least a year afterwards. I've had a couple of more encounters with Karens after that in various places, but by that time, I was fortunately way better off mentally, and I never broke down like that in public again. Jeez Louise, I'm just glad to know that OP was okay after all of that, and is now in a much better place. But yeah, like I always say, this is why you should always keep your hands to yourself, because you never know how somebody's gonna react, right? Like the fact that OP just shut down and blanked due to a raging Karen is scary as heck. I'm just glad that women face the consequences of her actions, and let me tell you guys, it's never ever worth going to jail over something so small like coffee. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/EntitledPeople episode, another one, where psycho Karens are again getting arrested for ridiculous things. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.